Hello, good morning. This is Cairo live from Malaysia, Banging. How are you today? Then I hope everything is fine with you. And welcome to today Ice Chat. Title today is Shaping the Career of Your Future of Your Career. Lesson learned from startups. And with me today there are some new guests. And let's take a look at something that we prepared for you.
What is design thinking? Well, it's the connection between empathy, strategy, and prototyping. Empathy is all about understanding people's needs and wants, so essentially what is relevant to people. Strategy is about understanding what is relevant for the company, so understanding the business model, the equity of your brands, your customer relation. No matter if you have them already with existing brands or if you don't and you need to craft them from scratch in the process of innovation. The role of the designers is to connect the two worlds. Now, the business community may tell us, you know what, we do that. We do empathy, we understand people, we have consumer insights working for us as marketers. And strategy, of course we do strategy as business people, we don't need designers. But there is the third pillar, that is the ability to prototype. Empathy, strategy, and prototyping. So as soon as you understand what is relevant to people and to the company, you start to create, to act into the process. And so this ability to create prototypes is an amazing value for the company because enable the company, first of all, to be aligned around an idea, and then enable different kind of functions within the company, because innovation is by definition cross-functional. So from R&D to finance to insights, marketing, and design, of course, again, to connect around that idea and co-create around that idea. All of this increase the efficiency of the process, increase the quality of what you do, especially because at a certain point you have the ability also to start interacting with consumers and customers and co-create with them. And so at the end of the day, it also increases the confidence of the organization that what you're doing is the right thing to do. And confidence is extremely important because what cripples innovation the most of the time is the fear of taking risk, is the fear of failure. And so you can control it in a variety of different ways. You have tools like consumer insights for validation to control things. But the reality is that innovation is risky by definition. And so you need confidence, inner confidence of people, brands, organizations to drive new things to market. And design thinking can help in that as well.
So this video is just one piece of the puzzle. If you want to get the full picture, check out some of the other videos. And if this is your first time here, I would love to have you to subscribe to the channel so we can keep bringing you more great content like this.
Hello, Ivan. Are you with me?
Yes, hi, Karo. Hi.
Hi.
Right.
Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So with me today is Ivan Yong. He's an organizational psychologist, an angel investor, as well as author of a book called Department of Startup. He's currently based in Hong Kong. Ivan, how are you in Hong Kong, Ivan?
Good. The weather's turning warmer. It's now summertime already. I think it's about 28 degrees here today. Way better than
Right.
before.
Okay, good. So how's it like in Hong Kong? Are you having some restriction of movement, or you can just freely go? I mean, can you tell us a bit more?
There's no MCO in Hong Kong, but if you go
Mm.
out, everyone expects you to wear a mask. So, as I was sharing with you, even if I go down to my lobby of my condominium to pick up my mails, I'm expected
Mm.
to wear a mask. If I don't wear a mask, the
Ah.
security guard or management will, they will sound me out. And the other thing is, if you're going out to eat, actually, you cannot have more than 4 person in one single table, and you must be the tables must be
Ah.
separated by 1.5 meter. Yeah.
Wow, that's. I think this is some kind of a new environment that we need to suit in. I think for Hong Kongers, like you mentioned yesterday, you guys are already going through this a number of times, and this is not your first pandemic, so to speak, crisis.
Yes, I think we learned a lot from SARS actually.
Mm.
During SARS, there was a lot of the fatality for SARS was really very high. Infected
Right.
persons normally they can't survive, no matter if they're old or young.
Mm.
And that brings a lot of lessons to Hong Kong. So until today, I think from that day onwards, we started eating with the what we call the public utensils. So you don't use your own utensils to pick up food, and
Mm.
normally if you go to a restaurant, food will be divided for you, so you eat your own share. You don't have to go and dig from the common plate.
Wow.
So it's a subculture now in
Yeah.
Hong Kong.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing that. So today our topic, Ivan, how to
Yeah.
shape the future of your career. Right. This is such an important topic in time like now, time of crisis, so to speak. But there's always opportunity abound, and this is what we wanted to learn from you. Lessons learned from the startup. Right. So Ivan, but before we move on, Ivan, I just want to like to ask you, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, right? Because I know you're Malaysian.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. Tell us more. I mean, a lot of our ideas wanted to hear from you.
All right, sure. Well, but before that, maybe I'll take the chance to to say selamat berbulan puasa kepada rakan-rakan Melayu yang
Thank
sedang
you. Thank you.
menunaikan tanggungjawab sebagai umat Islam. Jika
Right.
ada rezeki, mungkin kita boleh bertemu di Kuala Lumpur pada 1 Syawal nanti ya. Okay.
All right. Nice. Okay.
Well, I'm a Malaysian. I'm from Taiping, Perak, the most historical town in the whole of Malaysia. I studied all the way to STPM.
Taiping.
So
Which part of Taiping are you from?
Taiping
Taiwan.
from Kampung Boyan.
Kampung Boyan. Wow. Okay.
Very close to the station kereta api, Malaysia.
All right. So you eat a lot of durian in Batu Kurau, yeah?
Yeah. I used to go to Batu Kurau just to pick up the durian from the orchard actually.
Okay.
The Batu Kurau durian is more exotic. It's not the Musang King. It's not. It
Yeah.
has a different sort of taste to it. Actually, more
That's right.
local taste to it. Yeah.
All right. All right. Go ahead, Ivan.
Yeah. So personally, I'm a Malaysian. I studied all the way to Form 6 STPM. Then I went and did a degree in Nanyang Technological University of Singapore. I'm a mechanical engineer and production engineer first. My first job actually was making asthma drugs in a pharmaceutical company in Singapore, a big pharma. So I was manufacturing what we call the RX drugs. So these drugs are under patent, so it's very expensive drugs that we make. Basically, the whole process is that we mix lactose, which is non-active ingredient, with steroids. And all the drugs, normally Western drugs, we use steroids as an active pharmaceutical ingredient. I was there for about 5 years. Then on the 4th year, I think, I was selected for a career, what they call a career advancement program. And I was asked to go to the US. And that's where I did my first, I asked myself really whether my why actually, whether what I want to continue to stay in a pharmaceutical. And I told my boss then that, look, I don't think I want to be in this factory for 20 years. They pay very well because we deal with FDAs, we deal with a lot of the authorities, and you must be able to do, it's a very difficult kind of manufacturing.
Right.
So then he asked me what I want to do, and I said, I always dream of having my own business. And they said, why don't you just go back to NTU and pick up a business degree? We can pay for you. So as long as it's not MBA, we can pay.
Right.
So I tell him, like, I don't think you can be a businessman by going back to school. And they say, what are you going to do about it? And I say, well, maybe I believe that if I want to have my own business, I must know how to be the rainmaker. And the only way to do that is learn how to become a salesman. So I started going out looking for a sales job after I gave him the verbal resignation. He gave me 6 months. He said, you try 6 months, you come back. I'll keep the vacancy for you. I went around hunting for a lot of jobs. I can tell you, I was rejected left and right. A lot of the people were telling me that I belong in the factory. I was drawing a high salary, and they tell me like you're not suitable for.
Hold on, Evan. Why were you rejected? Was it because of your experience, your background, education, or why was it?
3 things. Number one is your education. Normally, people who do sales are not at that time not necessarily graduates from a big, especially from a good university. They won't do that. Right, Number 2 is like my salary in the pharmaceutical industry, which is a very difficult to go in industry, was pretty high already. But salesman actually works on commission, right? You take a very low base and then you work on commission.
Yeah.
And then the third thing is that I did a psychometric test, and then they were saying that I'm too diplomatic. My style is too diplomatic for sales. Sales need to be aggressive. You need to go for closing, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, so I got rejected a lot, but finally I found a role with a .com. Those days, in 2000, 2003, it was a .com bust. All the .com has went bust, especially, and there was this .com that belonged to NEC that went bust. So in Singapore, there were only 4% left, and then they managed to get a product called SAP, and then I managed to get a job with them to actually, the first job is to demo the product. And the reason why they hired me was because I implemented SAP back in the factory, and they wanted me to go and share stories how to implement SAP and all that with the clients. So I got a job as the first IT sales doing demos. So I was showing people how to click the demos and all that. But surprisingly, right, I realized after that, sales is not really about you knowing the product. Sales is about you knowing your customers' needs, actually. And most of my time in doing the sales call, I actually spent 3/4 of my time telling them how to run their warehouse, how to run your manufacturing, like how I run it back in Sharing Cloud, the pharmaceutical. And quite successful. We grew the company from 4 to 20 when I left. Got headhunted to Hong Kong, and then I started selling psychometric tools, which is actually your ability tests, your personality questionnaires that people use for recruitment purposes or even actually promotion purposes. Going up to Shanghai and then in Beijing for alternate months. So the interesting thing was I actually met my MD, who is a Brit. So we went through a series of tests, and then I got hired. There were more experienced people who wasn't hired. Right. So in the first day lunch I had with him, I say, Peter, I actually went and checked your website. All your clients are all these financial services industry people, so the banks, insurance, and all that. Whereas my experience is selling to factories. I sell to like the car manufacturers, the food manufacturers. None of them are FSI. And I tell him, like, if I were you, I would have hired me because I don't have the contact. I don't have the, you know. And you know what he said? He told me, like, you know, exactly why we hire you, because I think when I joined them in 2007, 2007 was a financial crisis. It wasn't a big crisis, but it was a financial crisis.
Right.
And what happened is, without losing a single client of theirs, they lost half the revenue, because the way we charge for tests are, if you test 1,000 people, then we charge it for 1,000 people. But what the clients has been doing is, to save costs, they cut from 1,000 to 500.
Right.
So they cut to 250. So they save costs. What happened is that the company suddenly lost half their revenue without losing a single. And then I say, I need you now to go to China and to sell to factories, convince the factories to use the product to do it.
Okay. So it's kind of interesting how your career took place and pivot, you know, and of course now made you one of a leading icon, no, in terms of business, as an angel investor, and also now you become an author. So now back to the topic, Ivan. You talk about startup, right? So startup is, I mean, the engine of growth the last few years. You know, it used to be SME. I mean, SME still, but now this new concept called startup, where a lot of young people join. People wanted to have a career pivot. People have certain ideas.
Yep.
But in your definition, Ivan, what is a startup to you?
Well, first of all, startup, you're out there to solve a problem, right? So your why must be based on a problem that's bigger than yourself. So why are you doing this? It could be, I have it in my slide, you could be, you're trying to create something good. You try to stop something good from, you know, from disappearing. You know, right a terrible wrong out there through startup. But our ideas of startup is still the same, actually. Our ideas is that we do not see every single startup becoming a unicorn. That's not our aim as angel investors. What we want to see is, we want to see all these startups becoming an SME where they can then employ people. That's our aim. In fact, in our portfolio, most of our startups have actually achieved a certain level of sizable sustainability where they can run and they employ people. And that's where we want startups to be. And that's also the biggest difference between angel investors like us and also the VCs, the venture capitalists.
So what's the difference? I mean, angel investor, I mean, they still use the same money, right? Your money and VC money is still the same, right? So what's the difference?
There's a big difference, actually. Now, angel investors are actually your own money. So you're investing your own money into this idea that you think is a make meaning. Whereas venture capitalists, normally they're employees. They don't invest their own money. They invest the VC's money, right? So the thing they're looking for is different. And for us, we want to have impact through our investment, because as angel investors, our investment options are rather big as well. You can invest in bonds, you can invest in shares, you can invest in stock market, but we decide to take that amount of money that we want to invest in other products to invest in a person with an idea. And that idea actually matches what we think it is. So that's the biggest difference between angel investors and VCs.
Right. Okay, that's a good explanation. Thank you for that. Now, you know what? We talk about change in the shaping your career in the future, right? I know you have prepared something. Would you like to show us to show it to us?
Sure. I have it's a short presentation which will guide us through the discussion.
Right.
Yeah. So, am I ready to go, Carol?
Yeah, please.
All right. Well,
I've not seen it on my slide. Have you shared yet? It's not appearing.
Oh yeah.
Yet.
Sorry. Let me see.
So that's Ivan, actually, Ivan Yong. Let me see. Let me see one more time. Okay, now it's appearing. Okay, good.
Yep.
Okay,
so,
go ahead.
The title of my topic today is Shaping the Future of Your Career, Lessons Learned from Startup. Now, one of the biggest commonality between your career and probably startup is, number one, is startups normally fail. 99% of startups fail. And as angel investors, our money when you invest in startups, there's big risk to it. Number two, startups face a lot of difficulties like what you face in the current situation as well. They're having the same situation, they face the same situation. But there are certain things that startups do pretty well that allows them to survive, or rather the good ones, I would say. And so I take lessons I learned from mentoring startups. I've been mentoring startups, and actually I've been a mentor with the Chinese University of Hong Kong for about 8 years now. And I take those lessons and I actually put it together in a PowerPoint to share with you today, actually.
All right. Okay.
Right. Now, one of the things that we talk about a lot since the beginning of 2018 or beginning of 2019 is this term called VUCA world. So it's volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Now, the coronavirus pandemic actually epitomized this whole four things, actually. Before this, when we tell clients about VUCA world, they think, we know it, but we're not going to face it. But now every single person, every single industry is facing this. It's volatile because, like today, Singapore 2 weeks ago, they were one of the golden standard of how you manage coronavirus without a mask. But today, there are now 28,000 infection. There's such a lot of volatility to that. It's uncertain because until today, nobody exactly know where they come from, how many strains there is. I've read that there's 5 strains in the US. In China, there's only 1 strain. There's so much uncertainty to that.
That's right.
And it's complex as well because there's so many contributory factors to it. And the solution is also going to be very complex because how you get infected. Before that, 1 infect 15, now 1 infect 5.
Yeah, and it's quite exponential.
Yes, it's exponential. And there's a lot of ambiguity to it. So what we mean by ambiguity is like data that you had before is no longer informing you. You cannot even perceive data as what the data is anymore. You have to go behind the data. So generally what I'm saying is that best practices, the old way of managing your career, and all these best practices that we've been telling you, those have to change, and it will change dramatically because of VUCA, the VUCA world that we are living in today. Now, a quick introduction about Nanyang Angels. Nanyang Angels actually came from, we're a bunch of alumni from Nanyang Technical University, and we got very interested in actually investing in startups. And one of the reasons we do this is we try to help our alma mater, our NTU startups that comes out, and we want to invest in them to help them go to market. Now, that's me on the left, and then on my right is my business partner Sam Lee. He's a HR professional as well. And then, together we actually wrote a book called Department of Startup: Why Every Fortune 500 Share One. It's actually it's a book here. It's published by Business Expert Press. I'm not sure if you can see it or not. In New York, and the concept is the same. We are trying to inform Fortune 500 what sort of innovation culture they can actually learn from startup, like what we are doing today. What can we learn from startup?
What sort of startup that you invest in, Nanyang Angels?
Okay, there's the next slide to that.
All right, okay.
But before I go into that, one of the 3 things that we hold on to is number 1, our startup, we would like to have social impact. So it must be doing something good for the community that they live in. Our startup founder must be willing to be mentored. And the third thing, we talk about ethical investment. So what we mean by ethical investment is there are a lot of angel investors out there. I wouldn't say angel investors, there are a lot of unscrupulous investors, I would say. When they meet a startup for the first time, they need money, and they take like a 30% or 40% cut of their stock of their startup, which we think that's not the right way. So we normally take no more than 8% of equity, and we want the startup to thrive. We want the startup founder to own the majority of the startup, actually. So that's what we mean by ethical investment.
Right. So your 8%, if I can just ask that a little bit more, 8% based on their valuation or your valuation, or you have independent valuer for this?
Well, it has to be an agreed valuation because a lot of time when the startup comes to us, the idea is still on a piece of paper, right? So there's no valuation. How do you value that? And a lot of startups actually value things off the chart. They say like, there's a big market, a $1 billion market, and we're looking at one. That's not the way we look at it because I think the key thing as a startup founder, you must remember that angel investors had an option to actually invest this amount of money in stocks, bonds, and many other things, but they're choosing it to invest in you. And if you're becoming too expensive and you're just an idea on a piece of paper, I mean, it isn't. So that's how we come with the valuation. It's an agreed upon valuation, I would say. Right.
That's kind of interesting. Okay. Right. When it comes to talking about investment and startup, so currently Nanyang Angels, what sort of startup that you have invested in? Can you share us?
All right. So I picked up 3 of our more successful one. Purely B is actually a Malaysian startup. They started with the founder looking to. She had a problem eating glutton food, and she wanted to do a gluten-free kind of holistic, healthy lifestyle in Asia. So one of the problems is that if you're looking to get some gluten-free food, you Google online, all the recipes are Western recipes, and she's trying to give you Asian recipes, so you can have Asian food yet gluten-free. We were one of their earliest investors, and they raised 1.8 million ringgit through a crowdfunding platform in 2017. It's still very active today. And back in 2019, they have almost 100,000 Facebook followers with 100,000 monthly active followers. So that's purely B. The other one is Genus. Genus actually is our own. It's a social startup that I started with my partner out of curiosity. We started it. It's to give education for the underprivileged, especially English. We did it for about 18 months, and we have put 300 children across into the program. And we work with the City University of Hong Kong to actually create rubrics for this program that we bring in from the US. So we have done 300 children in 9 countries in 18 months.
Wow, is it run online or in a distributed setup like that?
No, it's an online reading program, which I met the founder in the US. It's Dr. Marion Blank. She's 75 years old, and she found a way to actually teach kids how to read by learning the non-content words. Things like proposition, like if you understand the and over and all that. So even if you do not know the meaning of the vocabulary, you actually know the meaning of what you're reading, right? So that's how she actually hasted to read English. And I thought that's how I learned English. So we brought it back and we gave it to all the English kids in 9 countries over 18 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Evan, let's go back to your slides.
Yep. And the last one I want to bring to your attention is this called Sharon. So this founder, he's a Singaporean guy. He doesn't have education. His education is only up to diploma. But he has this passion for the world. Actually, he wants to make the world more green, more sustainable. So he started the concept of share and rent. So the starter is called share rent. So you share things and you rent things. So for instance, you might have a camera that a Kodak camera that's very expensive. You do hardly use it. You can decide to rent it out to a young couple who just got married on a honeymoon, and then they can rent it from you. And so what he's trying to say is that you may have all these idle assets that you don't use very regularly, and you can decide to rent it out or share it out, And one of the things we gave it to him was we want him to create a story, and he managed to do it, and we're very proud of him. That's why we actually invested in him. He actually went and collaborated with the Singapore government agencies to start a campaign called Sharing Friday. So on a Friday, even if you want to buy a new pen, don't buy, go and borrow it. Or you want to buy a new rubber or eraser, don't buy, borrow it. So you have this campaign running called Sharing Friday. So there's a social impact to that.
Oh, interesting.
So it's generous on their portfolios. So this Jasrina. Actually, the thing about Jasrina, about Purely B, is that we met them in 2015 at Rise. That time, the idea was a piece of paper. And then we challenged her, why don't you try to sell this on the social media, get a following, and you come back to us. And not only did she manage to do it, because of her personality and her work experience, she managed, and it's a seasoned digital professional for one of the leading media entertainment group in Malaysia. And with that experience, she managed to pivot. And of course, she managed to get the following, and then of course we invested. That was history.
Right.
How let's look at pivoting as well, the concept of pivoting.
Yeah.
Maybe I have one more slide I'd like to share about pivot, so people can think about what we talk about pivoting.
Okay.
Now, AKFS Plus is actually a traditional Chinese medicine company. They have a clinic in Hong Kong, and they do traditional medicine for their patient. Then they came to us, and then they wanted to create a product, a shampoo, where they put traditional medicines into a shampoo. Right? That's nothing. That's a bit unique, but it's not unique enough. And what he did then was he went and talked to celebrity Aaron Kwok, one of the famous singer in Hong Kong and China. And instead of getting him to be a spokesperson, he shared the product with Aaron Kwok. So now Aaron Kwok owns half the product.
All right.
And what happened is he owns half the product. Aaron Kwok started washing shares, shampooing his hair at home, shampooing his wife's hair at home with the same shampoo. And then Weibo, and then millions of Chinese consumers saw it. And then the founder brought 150,000 bottles to an Alibaba platform to sell in Hangzhou. So sell this thing on an Alibaba platform, and then in 150,000 bottles, he managed to sell it in only 3 minutes.
Wow, that's brilliant, right?
So that's another way of pivoting that we look at in startup.
Yeah. So you know what, Ivan, I really like the story where how the startup pivot change, adjust themselves, and a little bit of selling. So the topic that we've got to talk today about. So what are the lessons learned from startup that you think will be very helpful for our audience out there, for them to shape the future of their career?
Sure. So now one of the things about startup is, I'm going to skip all these things. So these are some of the activities that we do in. Okay. Now, so first of all, is what is a startup? So when we question ourselves, in our opinion, what is a startup? Our audience should also look at what is a career today now to them, actually, right? So in a startup, what we're saying is like we subscribe to the concept of Guy Kawasaki. You're out there making a world a better place. You're trying to increase the quality of life, or you're trying to right a terrible wrong, and you want to prevent the end of something good, actually. So in your career now, I think it's very important to ask yourself, I mean, is it a good time actually to ask yourself, what is your why? What is your passion? Why are you going to work every other day? Why? And you need to find that passion because I think there's a lot of, because of the changes that continue happening in the market, you might see a lot of actually ups and downs, shorter career cycles and all that. But if you have your why clearly spelled out, you always find a way to actually do that, either through a startup or be a startup in your company. So one of the things I've been doing before I have my own business is I've been helping 3 multinational corporations start their own business from scratch. One is a Japanese, American, and then the other one is a British company. So we start new businesses from scratch. And I can do that because of the why that I have in me as well. Now, then what a startup do very well is the pivoting that we mentioned just now. So they have a belief system, they monetize it, they market it, they productize it, but then things doesn't happen. Then they need to pivot. And then they innovate new pivot. Okay, I'm going to go a little bit more into that, how you can pivot with your career.
Right.
So one of the things you need to get right is the culture in you. Like, how do you face difficulty? So one of the famous person I talk about culture is Albert Camus. So Albert Camus is a French philosopher, and his idea is about this concept of absurdism, right? So, like, eventually you'll die, but why are you working so hard now? You need to find the meaning of that, right? I mean, eventually all of us are going to expire. But like, why are we working so hard? Why are we doing so much work? Or why? It's absurd if you think about it.
Right.
But his concept is this story of King Cepheus, right? So King Cepheus is an Egyptian mythology. He has been punished, actually, pushed the rock up on top of the mountain. Right. And then when it comes down, the rock will then roll down again. It will keep repeating this process, right? He will then push the rock up again, and then it will then roll down again. It's almost like us going to work, right? Every day you go out to work, make money, but then next day the rock goes down, you have to start pushing it up again. So one of the things that you must find happiness doing that. You must be stronger than your rock, and you must find certain happiness in doing that. So basically what Albert Camus is saying is like, how you actually respond to your situation will determine your happiness, right?
Yeah.
So some people might think it's absurd to do that, but actually, King Cepheus found joy in rolling up the rock to the mountain.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of what one quote from Steve Jobs I heard. You don't want to be the richest man in the graveyard, right? You want to make an impact to someone, right?
Yes, and almost like all our startups, right? When we ask them to make a social story impact first, it produces a lot of what we call social currency. So what we term by social currency is like, if you do something, like you volunteer out there, like Cairo, you volunteer for a good cause, right? And you post it out, and then because I know you, I know what you're doing, you're genuine, you're authentic, and then when I share your stories, it gives me social currency to do that. I'm associated with a nice chap who is doing his best for the world. And then people, that's how people knows you. Then people will know, that's how Cairo is a person is. So when you do good things, when you sacrifice, when you do self-sacrifice, you're able to get other people to promote you, because there's this thing called social currency. Right.
But Ivan, on that score, right? People today are very busy. I mean, there's a lot of, like, for example, now in the pandemic situation, in MCO, it's a condition MCO. People are busy. They can't go to work, and they hardly put food on the table. How does social currency like this, can help them? Is this kind of pivot? Should they just go looking beyond, not just the pandemic situation? Your thought, Ivan?
Well, I mean, like, one of the things about this pandemic situations, like during SARS, right? I got married during SARS.
You got married? Oh yeah, I saw the FB photos. All right.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I've been married
only
for-
eight people can attend that session, right? Wow.
Yes.
Mm.
So I mean, in those days, if you look at it, right, during SARS, it was the first time ever we faced an epidemic like SARS. You get sick by getting close to someone. It's very scary. I remember those days. We decided to go ahead the marriage, and then all this experience. But then again,
Right.
I can see two types of people, right? So in those days, all the property prices, the prices dropped like mad. They went rock bottom. So if you are a negative person, you will have thought that, okay, this is the end of the world. There's no point, in buying a house and all that. You will not have bought a house. But every single person who have bought a house or a condominium during SARS, they reaped a lot of benefit from there after that, because it went rock bottom and then it go up again. So I think one of the things that we need to look at this pandemic, it will pass. It will be gone soon. You must have the confidence for it. And then while you're doing that, you should start preparing for the time when that pandemic is over.
Right.
And I think that's the one thing that everyone should be doing, rather than look at it bleakly. I know the situation is tough at the moment, but you need to start building and curating your brand so that when you get out there to look for a job again, you have done some during this time actually.
Right. Okay, good. I'm beginning to get the idea where you are heading. So you mentioned just now one is sales job. A sales job definitely can take you beyond your just normal background, to go where you want to be. That's number one. Number two, you also mentioned about building social currency. It could be, and of course now social media, there are plenty of things that's happening right now. Even like what we are doing right now is on social media, building social currency. And you also mentioned just now that the pandemic changes will be gone soon. It won't last forever. I mean, history have shown it comes up after 2 or 3 years. Things start to come back to normal. I mean, hopefully Touchwood will last for another 5 or 6 years. But the thing is, we need to look beyond just the pandemic. Right. So those are the three things I gathered for now. So what else that you would like to add on to this lesson learned?
All right. So I think one of the few important first is, after you have the belief system of what your whys are, there's a few things that I think you should do as well. First of all, is your personal reputation. Like what Warren Buffett would say, your reputation and integrity has a high economic value, right? So integrity, do what you say what you do, and being authentic. Now, a lot of people talk about authenticity and all that, but how do you do that in a social media world today? So you do that by curating what you post online, and that's very important. People don't do that. They post what they like, but they don't think what they post, you see. So it's very important as a professional, you start curating posts, stories that's relevant to you, and that will shape your persona out there actually. And I always tell my startup founders, right, you must be able to do what Warren Buffett said, the newspaper test. When he said the newspaper test is, he always tells his executive, senior executive, before you make a decision whether you want to go into the gray area or not, ask yourself, if you appear in the newspaper tomorrow, you did it for bad news or you want it to be good news? Can you face your wife when you look them in the eyes tomorrow? If you appear in the newspaper, what kind of news are you generating? Same. So with your online reputation and your integrity, all that, people know you through the curation, right? So if you have been nasties and you have said words that are not nice, then that will appear as well in other people when they start searching for you. And the other thing is, like, you must be able to communicate this belief system of yours. Like, a lot of startup founders, they come to us and say that I'm passionate about about green technology. So I then ask him, right, so when you say you're passionate about green technology, right, how do you show me your passion? And you get dumbfounded. What do you mean by show me your passion? So I always tell people, right, if you're passionate about something, you must have an action that goes with your passion. For instance, if you're passionate about green technology, and you have a product that's green technology, have you been doing sales? Have you been selling it? Have you been talking to people? Have you been writing a lot about this green technology that you're trying to put in your startup? Have you been going out there, even go to the point of knocking doors on doors? Have you seen some work like that you put action onto the ground? And we want to see that off. And when we say communicate your passion, it's actually through this action that you're taking. So if you're passionate about kids, for example, but
Right.
you've done nothing about kids, you have not done anything, you're not even done tutoring for kids, then there's no way to really communicate your passion that well. So first
Right.
thing is your belief system is your why. Then you need to be able to curate contents about yourself, build your persona out there, and then you prove through us showing your passion, your action in doing your passion actually.
Right. You know, okay, I like what you said just now that some startup founders, they have this big idea, they have this passion. I have two questions. Number one, there's a saying goes that you may have a lot of passion, but do you have the competence or not? Yeah. Do you have the competency to do it or not? That's number one. My first question. Number two is, there are a lot of people out there who actually have a lot of big ideas, but you're right, they have not knocking on doors to try to sell. They are looking for just money for people to invest in them. Then only I would do it. So, what is your experience in that area?
So maybe I'll answer question number 2 first, right? So there is a lot. What I can see today is that there is a lot of startups, but there's no entrepreneurship. Yeah, you're looking for money to fill your startup, but you're not doing the actual entrepreneurship. And normally, startups founders like that, they will fail. I mean, I have to say that if they don't change, they will fail because you're not putting where the money, your action where your money is. You're asking people to invest their hard-earned money into you, but you're not doing the real job of entrepreneurship. You're not building the business, you're not selling it. So it's tough. I mean, like if you cannot get an angel investor to invest in you, it's kind of tough to get even a bigger institution to invest in you because they can't see your passion. And on the first question about the first question is about competency.
Passion and competence,
Competency. Now, you hit the right note as well. So part of my job as an organizational psychologist is when people are hiring someone, my clients would then send me their candidates. So I'm not a headhunter, but the headhunter found this candidate. Then I will administer a series of tests on them, which is actually ability tests and the personality questionnaire, which basically talks about competency potential. So the question is, do you have the potential and the necessary competency to do well in this job or not? So that's how I do testing for my clients. So they say like, okay, I need a sales manager. I sit through my clients and say, what are things that this sales manager needs to do? I identify the competencies, put them through a test, and I look at the potential, whether they have the potential or not, and I give my client the report. So same as startups actually, but startup has one different thing. Because it's a startup, once the startup founder can look for co-founders that complement his competency.
Right.
I think that's very important actually. So what we do as well for startup founders is that we put them through the same test that I do for my clients, because we want to know about this startup founder. We want to know about who else he or she should be talking to bring in as a co-founder. So normally, husband and wife co-founder is a bit tough, I would say.
Why?
Why? Well, normally those with good marriages, I would say that complement each other very well, because there are certain things you're good at, your wife is good at. But the problem is, then comes to the second part. Is like in startup founder, you must be able to thrash things out, right?
Right.
I might be having an argument with you right now, but then after we finish about startup, we should be able to go and have a meal. But the problem with marriages is like when that happens, it's very difficult to bring that out when they go home. So normally
the trash should stop somewhere, right? It shouldn't be all the way. Spread somewhere else.
Yeah, it's difficult to stop that. It's difficult to stop that. So normally, advice you not to actually. Yeah.
Right. So let's back to your slide. I think you have prepared something. Okay.
Yeah. So now, when you have the belief system, and then the next thing you need to do is what the concept called the renewal of the minds, actually. So we wrote this in all these things that you find in the slides is found in the book as well that we wrote. Now, when we talk about renewal of the minds, is you change your concept, your mind about certain things, right? So we all know from history, during the early part of history, all the knowledge, all of that was actually residing in the East, in China, in Turkey, in the Ottoman Empire. Those where the knowledge were. But then suddenly came Renaissance, and then suddenly all the knowledge that we are learning right even today start to come from the West. What has happened? Because during that period of time of Renaissance, the Western society start to question things differently. They start to question things for evidence-based kind of things. So meaning to say, if I make a statement about something, I must have an evidence to back it. And that has now informed everything that we learn from school to universities all the way to PhD, right? It's all evidence-based. Now, and because of the renewal of the mind, the Western powers and Western world became what it is today, that we see today. Of course, whether that's still relevant or not is another question, another topic, which I think there needs to be another renewal of mind again in the West. But one of the stories that I always talk about when I talk about renewal of the mind is actually the East India Company, our Jaja, right? Now, the East India Company started not because it was a new idea. It started like a startup, 1600s. They saw the Dutch having ships coming out to the east and bringing spices back is a new trade, and they want a piece of that. So Sir John Watts, with 10 other people called the Adventurers, they pulled together money and they started this East India Company. They saw the Dutch having ships coming out to the.
That's interesting.
So what one of the first thing they did for renewal of the mind then was they pulled their money and then they bought a ship, right? The ship is called the Red Dragon.
Right.
And then in those days, normally a good gentleman would be an officer, come from a wealthy family, and normally they will look for people like that to command the ship, right? But then they decided not to actually. So John Watts decided to find this guy called James Lancaster, and James Lancaster is basically a pirate, and he needed someone like that to go to the east, to the far east, simply because those days the British were at war with the Dutch. And if they actually see a Dutch ship in the middle of the sea, they can actually go attack it and command the ship and all that. And that's what exactly Sir James Lancaster did. He took over a Dutch ship, took all the stuff, bring it all the way to actually, I think, to Java. And he stopped by Selat Malacca. And the third thing he did was, Sir James Lancaster was, when he landed in Java Real, normally what they do is they come all the way to this part of the world, they're Dutch, then they will bring all the spices back to the western side, right? But Sir Lancaster did what, he actually used the stuff that he has bought with the money that he has, he actually built a base in Real.
Wow.
And that became the first landing spot for the British. And that's how the entire empire started from there. If James Lancaster was a normal gentleman and an officer from a wealthy family, he would have followed instructions, he would have bring the stuff back.
Right.
But,
okay, this is an interesting story. I want to relate back in the situation in during this pandemic in Malaysia. There are a lot of people are losing jobs or expected to lose jobs the next few months. And I'm not so concerned about the graduates, although I know, but they're just starting out. They still have low commitment. But I want to ask a group of unique people where they are the middle managers. These are the people that used to work for a company, maybe in the government. They used to take orders, and of course, some of them were a little bit more creative, a little bit more innovative, venture out to do something different. But the big majority is they take instructions, right? Because there is a SOP guidelines to do things, just to make sure things are properly done. So how can this group of people pivot or reskill, upskill, or shape their career in this kind of situation right now?
Okay, so go back to my personal story, right? So one of the things I knew from very young is I always wanted to have my own business. But somehow it was in me when I was a kid, because of watching all the TVB dramas and all that. Maybe okay, I watched P. Ramlee as well, but but those TV dramas actually affected me. I always wanted to have my own business, and I find that that's so I settled my wife first, right? So then when I pivot to my first job from the factory to the sales job, right? I begin to saw how it happened, because I look at the skills that I have today, which another person can use in another industry. So in my case, I was running an FDA competent CGMP manufacturing. So I was manufacturing very difficult things. So in a pharmaceutical, even if you throw a waste, if you don't throw it properly, you go to jail for it, because it's either poison registry, right? Now, those experience plus implementing SAP, an ERP system in my own factory, those were the skills that I have when I go and join this .com, this Japanese .com. So they needed people with experience like that to go and do demo and tell the clients of the SMEs factories how can you run a factory or warehouse that can meet even FDA standard. So those were skill sets I have. So when I joined them, those were the things they needed.
Right.
So at that point of time, I may not necessarily have the skills, the sales skills, or my sales skill is still very raw. But I have this set of skills I have, which they needed. So one of the things that all these, I would say to all these friends who are going to lose their job, start looking at your why, what they want to do next. Secondly, look into their strengths. What are the strengths that they have, and how can they use to pivot those strengths into these other new things that they want to do. I think that's very important to start questioning themselves right now. What are the things they can pivot with their strengths actually?
Okay, so they have their why. They want to get out. They believe there's something going on. But how do they assess their own skills so that they have more confidence? I mean, you mentioned about psychometric, but somebody tell you in the past on psychometric as well, Ivan, you are too nice. You cannot be a salespeople. But you quash that. You learn something and then you defy the psychometric, right? So what's your thought about that?
Actually, the psychometric was correct. The two he used was I'm actually quite a diplomatic person, right? So he felt that I won't be successful in his kind of sales. So the guy who interviewed me was is a headhunting company, and they were actually placing short-term contract jobs workers. So for that kind of sales, you need to do it like this. You see, you need to press and pressure your client.
Okay.
So, but what happened is. Not that I know at that point of time, but what I found out later that is when I go and sell IT sales, especially for large enterprise sales, which normally takes 6 to 9 months to 12 months for sales to complete, this diplomatic is actually very important because you bring diplomacy, you talk to 6-7 people who are making decisions, and how do you bring diplomacy into all this? And it was the kind of skills that we needed for that kind of a sales.
Okay, yeah, all right, yeah. So in other words, the psychometric report, Ivan, can give you like a second, what I call alternative viewpoint about yourself that you're not knowing. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So before you use psychometric tools, right? Okay. First, let me answer your question. You're right. Definitely, you need to have the psychometric tool will give you an objective assessment about yourself. So, for example, if you go for an interview, and if the interview asks you very random questions, the interview has become very subjective, right? When I ask you to do a series of psychometric tests, which is actually objective questionnaire, and now it has become very objective. But what we do in organizational psychology and HR is that we want to have a middle viewpoint, a bit of subjectivity and objectivity. And what the psychometric do is that it will give you this objective assessment of yourself. So it's very important to choose a good tool, but it will give you a different perspective of yourself.
Right. I think the key point you mentioned here is to have an objective view of ourselves, you know.
Yes.
Because as humans, sometimes in situations like this, we become emotional. We clouded by our judgment. We probably clouded by our own situation, the challenge. We might not be able to think objectively, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, all right, Ivan, I want to ask you a bit of sensitive questions, but I hope you don't mind. Right? Are you ready for that?
Sure.
Right. So what are some of your failures? You know, we heard about your success. What are the failures that you see or you pick up along the way? You can be discreet about it, but just take the essence of it.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm successful yet. If I'm successful, I should be probably having a driver waiting for me somewhere to go. Well, I think I have to qualify that really seriously. I don't think I'm successful yet. It's still a journey for me. For failures, actually, there are a few. Actually, number one is not listening to my wife.
Okay.
So one of my first startup that I did was I actually partnered with an investor, and then and my wife was she was very precipitous about it. She said like I don't feel good about this partnership, and then I because I refused to listen to her, and then what happened then is of course the partnership went south, and then I have to start again from zero, right? That's one of the biggest failure. Now, I've been invited to a lot of talks about startups and how people should start startup, and always I get a question from the audience at the end of the presentation. It's like, so what's your one advice you give me if I want to do a startup? So I always tell them like, if you're married, please ask for permission from your wife or your husband. If you're not married, if there's someone that you want to marry, please ask his or her permission as well. And the reason for that is really because you're not asking permission to do it, but you're asking permission to put them through a roller coaster ride of emotions actually. And then somebody needs to be there, paying the bills of a regular job while you try this startup. And I think that's very important. I think when you are into a startup and you're kind of in a situation now where you're looking at a new career and all that, I think it's very important to bring your other half on board actually, so that you can do this together. I think that's the second failure, I would say one of the second failure I had is I try to check myself now a lot as well. I mean, a lot of the young kids nowadays, they have actually ideas that, and they have concepts actually that, you know, that may baffle us at first, but they may know something that we don't know. And I'm trying to check myself more regularly now. I say, like, I do not know as much as they. I mean, I only know as much as I know, but they might know something that I don't actually. And I'm trying to get myself more focused on that. You see someone way younger than you, 10, 15 years younger than you, saying something, it's very tendency for us to say, okay, he may not know what he's talking about, but he may actually know what he's talking about, because he or she they're in the technology world that we have to admit that in our 40s we are. I mean, today kids don't even use Facebook, if you know it.
Right. TikTok, Snapchat.
Yeah. So the other second thing that I think from one of my experiences, that I'm telling myself to, you know what, I don't know as much as they do as well. Even they may be 15 years younger than me. So there's these two things, which bring to my third point actually. This idea of being teachable and learn. So. You know, in the story of Pride and Prejudice, right? The story by Jane Austen. I'm not sure how many people have read the book or have read it, but the protagonist called Elizabeth Bennet. Her love life is actually this gentleman called Mr. Darcy. But initially, they almost fell out because Elizabeth Bennet has a lot of prejudice about Mr. Darcy, and Mr. Darcy was a high-born, you know, socialite, and he has a prejudice about Elizabeth Bennet as well. Now, and what these two things do to us is that if you have pride, you have a high opinion of yourself, which I said earlier about it. When I met someone younger and he gave me ideas, I'm telling myself to listen to this person first before I make my comments, because that was starting from learning. And prejudice is that if you have preconceived, you know, opinion about certain things, but that's not based on facts, you know, it will cause you'll be a stumbling block as well. And most of us, when we go back to the working world or a new career, we might find our bosses to be younger than us already, because millennials are entering the workforce. Now 75% of the workforce are millennials, and millennials are entering the leadership position already. So we got to prepare ourselves, you know, that we might have to learn and be teachable from people younger than us.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you mentioned, Ivan, where the new generation, the millennials, are knowing so much more in terms of what's happening now. But we, as the many of the senior leaders who are probably in the leadership position, I wouldn't say leadership position, they're in a powerful position, right? So how does these two can work together? Because I've seen with my own little experience that, you know, there was someone powerful, senior, powerful and successful with experience. They are unable to gel well with the new generation. They expect them to toe the line, grow the way they grow before, take time, be patient, polite. Sometimes there's also confusion between what you say and how you say it. So what would be your advice with these two generations? How can they add value and advance the situation that we are in right now?
Well, one of the things that we are running in my own consulting company, we're running this thing called the Millennial Leadership Coaching, right? So we are actually trying to close this gap from the senior management. So the senior management probably will come from the Pride and Prejudice book as well. I might ask them to read the book Pride and Prejudice. But actually, I think when I mentor a lot of the undergraduates in the Chinese University of Hong Kong, a lot of these questions come about. Is like, how do I, you know, put value to my mentors, right? So I always advise the young ones to actually, why don't you come up with a project that is beyond me actually? For instance, I tell them, very simple. Can you come up with a project that do about social media, Instagram or TikTok, which I wouldn't know how to do it. So the idea is to bring something to the table that the older senior leadership does not have the skill to do it, but you have the skill to do it. But it's meant for the same business purposes. But you as a millennial would have this knowledge to do it. But a millennial probably can set up a TikTok account in 5 minutes. But if you ask a senior management to do it, it may take him like, you know, like maybe half a day.
Yes.
Even for me, until today, I cannot understand tweet or how people tweet. You know, I get confused with tweet. But the kids are they're running around with tweets actually. You know. So I think the onus is all on the young ones to create something from their strength and bring that to the table, so that, you know, those are the things that, I mean, like it or not, the senior management they have to sit up and listen, right? Because this is something new to them. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value in that. So in terms of Startup. Let's come back to startup. So in your from your observation, the last 1-2 years and what's happening last 2 months, what do you think, or your suggestions, if you offer us a little bit? Do you see a startup that is growing the next few months, and maybe in short-term years, what would it be?
I think there's a lot of opportunity for startup right now. I mean, when even before the pandemic, right? Startup have this issue. They're telling you, like, we are trying to disrupt the industry.
Right.
We're trying to bring something new to the industry, and nobody will be willing to listen because they're so busy with their business. Nobody. But now today, every single industry is disrupted. Every single company is disrupted. Every single senior management in every single MNC, they are looking for a new solution for their current problem, right? So if you're a startup, you're passionate about something, you want to correct something wrong, and then all you need to do is, you do not need to bring in the disruption anymore. The disruption is already there. Bringing the innovation out. So, for instance, right, I just had a chat, I think a few days ago with some startup founder. Number one is, like, if you're able to solve social distancing for a confined space, you might be able to solve the cruise industry problem today. If you go bring a solution to the cruise industry senior management today, I mean, they'll be more than willing to listen to you. The airlines. Right, the airlines. Warren Buffett just took out $6 billion worth of investment from the airlines, but he said that he's actually very happy with the CEOs of the airlines that he invested in. It's not that they don't like him. It's not that he doesn't like them. He likes them. He commends the job they've been doing, but coronavirus has brought this thing to a halt. So he has to pull his money out. So if you are able to bring innovation to the airline industry that can solve their current issue, where distancing, how can they innovate, how can they pivot? I mean, you have a startup already and ready clients to pay you money, actually. So I guess you're a startup, there's no better time to do startup but now. Now is a very right time to do startup, I would say.
Right, I think that's interesting that you mentioned that the disruption is already here, right? So now bring me the solutions, right? But the thing is, Ivan, for example, even in your portfolio yourself, what kind of portfolio or startup that you are interested in? If you can just shout out to the people who's listening and watching this.
Well, first of all, we stay away from biotechs and the pharmaceuticals. That's because of my personal.
What? That's the big growing things now, right? Okay.
It's because of my experience in the industry. I know how tough is it to get all these standards and all these testings done. The runtime is too long for angel investors, but we don't invest a lot, right?
Fair enough.
But other than that, we're actually quite interested, because we are interested more in the founder. We are more interested in you rather than the idea, right? And the second thing, the way we do it in Nine Angels, we do it is like, what we are saying is that we may not give you a lot of money, but we will open our networks for you. So, for example, one of the startup that I mentor, actually, he actually do coating for homes, right? So he can introduce coating to your painting, so they can prevent bacteria, prevent viruses, and all that. We mentor him. He first came to us for money. And after I sat down with him for an hour, 2 hours, I said, look, you don't need money, you need sales. And then I had a chat. He pivoted. Then 6 months later, he went off. 6 months later, he came back. He gave me a call. He said, Ivan, can I ask you out again? Then I said, don't worry, I don't need your money. I just need your time. And that's it. And he has actually secured a deal with one of the building out here in Hong Kong, which is actually the 12 months project. But he will quote the entire thing. So he got the sales to run his startup.
Wow.
And then the next thing now he doesn't want money, because he wants to chat, to find ideas, how to pivot and all that. I think that's very important for us. I think for startup founders, your idea is not to chase the money, but to chase, the right kind of investor and the right kind of mentor. If you have the right mentor, it just brings you very far. So in our case, what we do is that if you come to us, say for example, you come to us in an education startup, I may not have the experience, Sam may not have the experience. We start looking in our network for someone who are in the industry, who can then come and tell you what to do actually.
All right. How can they reach you, for those who are listening? Okay.
I'm actually on LinkedIn. Just Google Ivan Yong Wei Kit, my full name. Later I have some at the last slide I have something as well that I can share. You can copy it.
Right.
The other thing is just email me at ivan@nanyangangels.com.
Ivan, NANYANG ANJELZ, right?
Yeah.
.com, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I put it up. Right, Ivan, we have only 1 minute, 2 minutes left. You mentioned about mentors, right? Who do you look up to as your mentors?
Actually, my mentors are this gentleman called Mr. Anthony Teo. He's actually he's a Singaporean. He used to be the secretary of NTU. Before that, he's based off in Hong Kong, actually. I met him quite interestingly because I actually came to Hong Kong to network for a job. So I bought a suit, I bought a tie, and I went up to the lobby lounge, and I went to I read somewhere that you need to network for a job rather than write letters.
Right.
And then I went up to the hotel lobby lounge. I met Mr. Anthony Teo, and then he asked me, how can I reach you? Like how you asked me this now. I don't have a name card because I just finished my last paper from NTU and I flew out to Hong Kong to look for a job. And then I started writing on my CVs my name and my email and my phone number. And he told me straight away, he said, if you continue to do this, you'll never get a job in Hong Kong.
Right.
But then what he did next for me was he invited me to another chamber networking. So I went back, I gave it a thought, and I started printing name cards with my name and my expected degree and my email and my phone number. And I used whatever savings I have then, I pay for it. I brought the name cards, I met him, and he was delighted because that's how mentor works, right? He don't tell you the answer. He knows enough to know this won't work, but you have to figure out what to do next. And then, and then I start passing those name cards with no brand, no companies, nothing but my own name on it. And that is the kind of mentor that I aspire to be as well. You know enough, but you do not give the answers because the answers could be very different for different people now, actually. And I think it's kind of mentor that I look at too.
Right. All right, Ivan, we are at the closing of the show. I know you have prepared a number of more slides, but we can keep that for our next session. So before we leave and close the session, can you just give us a few of your last words for this session?
Well,
for the startup founder out there, for media managers, for leaders, please.
Well, startup founders, I think you're in a very exciting time. I mean, like there are so many things that you can do right now. You can approach any single industry today, and they will have a problem that they need you to solve for them right now. You need to look at what you can innovate for them, pivot for them, help them look. For middle managers, right? I mean, like it's going to be a difficult time. A lot of people get retrenched. But why not consider startup as an option as well? In fact, you're in a much more better position to do startup than a fresh graduate because you have experience, you know your industry very well, and you have enough networks around you to help you go into getting your first sales, and that's very important. We want startup to get sales, and you as a experienced manager with the context that you have, you're actually quite right position to do a startup.
Right.
And the third thing is, what's the last one you want me to talk?
Yeah, for leaders out there, the senior management.
Senior management out there, I would say that do look at a startup as an idea for you to how to innovate, because I had an article that I submitted to a finance magazine. I was commissioned to write it. I mean, look at how startups are always cash strapped anyway. It's a situation that we face all the time, but for the MNC to be cash strapped is the first time ever, right? So how does the startup go about managing their problem, in a cash strapped situation? So I felt there's so much that leaders can learn from startup, and that's why we wrote the book as well. Is that imagine you have a department of startup in your company today, and that's the reason.
Right. Okay, with that, thank you so much, Ivan. Give you a big applause here. Thank you so much, Ivan. Thank you. So I really hope to catch up with you again one more round. Maybe we can go through more stuff with you, particularly on the HR and also your psychometric. That sounds interesting. And of course, more about your book, Startup, in the next session. Thank you so much, Ivan. I'm going to leave you here. Have a good day. Stay safe. Take care.
Bye. Bye, Carol.
Bye. So that's, ladies and gentlemen, that's Ivan Yong from Hong Kong. I hope you pick up a few things over there. I just want to run through a lot of gems here. A little bit from Ivan. So startup is about solving problem. It's not just about coming up with something new, but also solve problems. He talked about we are in the VUCA world right now. It's nothing new, but the thing is, the pandemic has brought this. I like what he said. I like what you said just now, which is about building something truly useful for the community. Yeah, and the disruption is already here. We need to now bring the solution. Yeah. So one thing about Ivan, he also talked about mentorship. Mentorship, they don't tell you the answer. You have to figure out what you want to do next. Ivan also talked about getting a sales job, getting a sales experience, and number 2, grow your network. This is an important stuff that you need to pick up. And the third one is have a strong purpose. Believe in yourself. And number 4 is, let me see, he also talked about getting permission. If you are married, I tend to agree with this. I'm married. You talk to your wife, to your partner, you venture out something new that it may cost a lot of money. You may stay away for a while, the kids and stuff like that. So you really need to get permission, not to what we call just to get permission, but so that they're able to have some expectation what's happening with you if you're not going to be around for a long time, and spending time with them. And check yourself regularly about things you don't know. Always learning. So with that, I would like to end the session. Thank you so much. See you again in Ice Chat tomorrow. We have something special this Friday. Someone very special, a founder of a startup. Who is this person? What's the topic about? Check out, follow Detail Leadership and follow Ice Chat and follow our YouTube channel Detail Leadership. See you around. Take care. Stay safe, everybody. Bye bye.